Final thing I want to talk about, as long as I'm on the topic of Bernie Sanders, I read this article and I posted it up on my Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, it's got a lot of reaches so far, 115,000 or so. But it was based on an article in which this economist is claiming that if Sanders is president, I mean, we're going to have this huge boom. I mean, it's going to be an economic boom. We're going to have a huge increase in the GDP. Real incomes are going up, real wages are going up. And this guy is saying if we just elect Sanders and do his plan, right? Not just elect him, but we implement all the things that he's promising, it's going to be like a huge economic boom. Everybody's going to benefit. It's going to be massive economic growth. Unemployment is going to plunge. Incomes are going to surge. Productivity is going to go up. All this stuff is going to happen. Complete and utter, unadulterated liberal nonsense. And, you know, one of the funniest parts of the article is the reason that the economy is going to do so well is because the economist that wrote it, he writes that Sanders is going to juice GDP and productivity by pouring $1.5 trillion into the economy. Like the economy is a big pot, and Bernie Sanders is going to come along with a pitcher, and he's just going to pour $14.5 trillion in there and stir it up, right? And so now the economy is going to have this extra $14.5 trillion, and so that's going to really juice it up. We're going to have all this extra productivity and all this extra GDP. Yeah, I mean, the guy that wrote this article ever thought about, where is Bernie Sanders going to get the $14.5 trillion? I mean, Bernie Sanders doesn't have it. I mean, what is he? He barely has any underwear. Although that was a joke from Saturday Night Live, right? He had, 2 or 3 pairs of underwear, or 1 pair of underwear. But Bernie Sanders doesn't have much money. I mean, even Donald Trump doesn't have that kind of money. I mean, Donald Trump could pour a couple of billion into the economy, I guess. He can empty out all of his accounts. Although even he can't pour it into the economy because it's already in the economy. And that is my point. Bernie Sanders doesn't have a magic pitcher full of $14.5 trillion that he could just pour into the economy. I mean, can the Fed print $14.5 trillion and pour it into the economy? Sure. But is that going to make the economy grow? No. It's just going to make prices go up. I mean, if you could grow the economy by printing money and stirring it on into the pot, everybody would do that. And it would be so simple to have real economic growth. But it doesn't work that way. But Bernie Sanders can't do anything. I mean, where is this $14.5 trillion that he's pouring in? Where's it coming from? Where's he going to get it? Now, the guy that wrote the article says, well, he's going to get it because we're going to increase minimum wages. We're going to have all these programs. We're going to create jobs and put people to work. And all that's additional money. But no, it's not. I mean, first of all, if an employer is going to pay his workers more, then he's going to earn less himself. Or if it's a public company, the shareholders are going to earn less. There's nothing being poured in anywhere. It's just being transferred. You see, before the government could pour $14.5 trillion into the economy, it first has to siphon out the $14.5 trillion. And in fact, it's got to siphon out more than $14.5 trillion because you have this dead weight loss. Because, the government is just taking money away from one part of the economy and then putting it into another part of the economy. But it doesn't work for free. Government is very expensive and very inefficient. My father's line, they told me to describe it. This is government aid, which is what this is, right? Government transfer payments. It's like trying to give yourself a blood transfusion from your left arm to your right arm, only you spill half the blood on the floor in the process, right? So you lose blood. And so this is what Bernie Sanders wants to do. He wants to give the economy a transfusion. He wants to take $14.5 trillion out of one part of the economy and put it someplace else. He's not pouring anything in because he's only pouring in what he siphoned out. But you got to pay for all the government in the process, so it's a dead weight loss. But it's more than that because you got to look at where the money is being pulled out and where it's being pushed in. Because all the taxes, all the higher taxes that Bernie Sanders wants are on investment income, right? If you're going to tax the upper income, you're not really taxing what they spend. You're taxing the money that they were going to save and invest. And so you're leaving less money available to save and invest in the private sector. And the money that's being doled out is more or less just going to be consumed. More transfer payments or higher wages that are just going to be spent, right? They're not going to be invested. They're not going to be saved. So you're converting resources that would have been used to support investment and real economic growth and higher labor productivity and more economic output, and you're diverting those resources to pure consumption. So that is going to lower our future standard of living, not diminish it. So by taking money out of the private sector where it would have been invested productively and just diverting it through the government sector to be spent frivolously, that's going to lower our economic output, our GDP, ultimately lower our employment. But also, what about the incentives? When you ratchet up taxes, I mean, if you look at all the tax increases that Bernie Sanders has, the marginal tax rate, because he wants to eliminate the cap on Social Security. So, you have to pay that 15% on all your money. He wants to raise the income tax. And so if you take a higher income tax and a payroll tax, and, you're talking about 70+% marginal tax rates. Now, what is that going to do to our biggest earners? That's going to create a powerful disincentive to retire early, to not work as hard, because you're not going to receive as much of a reward for your labor. But also, the higher the income tax, the more valuable leisure becomes, right? I mean, think about that. If the government's going to take 70% of your income, they're basically subsidizing 70% of your vacation. Because if I decide to take a vacation instead of working and my income goes down, I don't lose the 100 cents. I only lose the 30 cents. So it makes it cheaper and cheaper for me to take a vacation instead of work, right? If I was in the 99% tax bracket, why work? I mean, I'm only going to get one penny on the dollar. I might as well take a vacation, because how much do I have to lose? I just lose a penny. The government would lose the 99 cents if I took a vacation. So the higher you make the income tax, the greater the incentive it is for people not to work, to just relax, because they don't lose very much, right? If there's no income tax at all and you take a vacation, well, you lose whatever you would have earned. You've lost it. So the government is going to create more and more incentives for people who are working not to work as hard. And of course, by just doling out all sorts of money in government programs, you create another incentive for people just to sign up for those programs and to restructure their lives to qualify for these programs. And if that means they work less so they have lower income, so they get more money from the government, that's exactly what they do. So the incentives, when you do this kind of government redistribution, lowers real economic growth, lowers productivity, lowers living standards, lowers employment. So it's the opposite of what this idiot expects by having massive tax hikes on one segment of the population and then pouring those tax revenues into another part of the economy. He is not pouring anything in. He is not juicing anything. He is destroying. He is liquefying. He is. This is going to implode the economy. All this is socialism. And where has it worked? Right. This is another example. Central bankers will never admit that their monetary policy doesn't work. Well, socialists will never admit that their economic policy doesn't work. No matter how many times it's failed, they never admit it. It's, oh, well, it wasn't done right. Right? I mean, look at East Germany and West Germany. I mean, it wasn't like you had everybody in West Germany trying to get over the wall to get to East Germany. It was the other way around. I mean, the standard of living in West Germany was about the highest in the world. East Germany was a basket case. Look at North Korea, South Korea, North Vietnam, South Vietnam. Look at Taiwan and mainland China, or Hong Kong and mainland China, before mainland China abandoned socialism and embraced the capitalism that was working so well in Hong Kong and Taiwan. I mean, anywhere. Look at Cuba. I mean, there is no example of this working. And in fact, in any capitalist country, as you introduce socialist ideas and socialist programs, you undermine the economic growth. So you could take a look at all the economies in the world and say, okay, which economies are the freest? Which economies have the lowest taxes, the fewest regulations? And you'll see those are the economies that have had the most economic growth. Those are the economies that have the highest per capita incomes. Those are the economies that have the lowest rates of unemployment. So the more you basically encumber a free market with socialist programs, and see, Bernie Sanders wants to say, look, I'm not a total socialist. I'm this democratic socialist. I just want to do more stuff like Social Security and Medicare and Obamacare. I just want to expand all that good stuff. That is the stuff that is destroying our economy. Yes, that is socialist stuff, and it doesn't work. See, Bernie Sanders likes to say, well, everybody loves Social Security, so you'll love all the other socialist ideas that I have. Well, a lot of people don't love Social Security. It's just that the people who are on it, they want their money. But I bet if you can go back in time and tell a lot of people, hey, What about if we can eliminate the Social Security tax so you can keep all that money and invest it the way you want? Would you like to do that? And I bet a lot of people that are getting Social Security now or about to get it would say, yeah, I want to do that. It's just that so many people want Social Security because they've already paid into, or they think they've paid in for the last 20 or 30 years, and now they want to get what they've been promised. So what they want is the money they've been promised. I don't think they like the program. They just want their money. And they want to make sure that politicians don't cut it. But I think a lot of people understand that the program's a lousy deal. And in fact, a lot of young people who are in their 20s and their 30s, if you said, hey, we'll let you out of this deal. Hey, will you sign a deal right now that says, you'll have no Social Security taxes. Your employer won't have any Social Security taxes. You just sign off on your benefits. And I bet the vast majority of people in their 20s and 30s would take that deal in a heartbeat. I mean, I'd take that deal now. I'm 53. If the government came to me and said, hey, we'll stop all your Social Security taxes now, in exchange for giving up all your benefits, I'd give them up. Even though I've been paying in for 30 years? I still think I can do a better job investing my own money for the next 10 or 15 years and give up all of those promises. So those programs don't work. They've never worked. They're a disaster. And the programs that Bernie Sanders is promising are going to be, or would be, an even bigger disaster.